Hi, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the Writer's Bookshelf. So today we're going to have a really interesting book, a really important book if I do say so myself. It's in my opinion one of the most important books of the season, and it's one that I almost didn't review because I didn't have it, and the only reason why I have it at all now is because I realized when I went through my checklist of craft techniques to include in the season, we had a lot of character, we had settings, dialogue, and then of course later on we're going to get it into other components, which I'm not going to spoil yet. But one thing I thought about is like, I don't have anything on conflict, and conflict is like the bread and butter of storytelling. So I looked through Amazon and Barnes & Noble and all those to see what I didn't have that I needed. And so there's a book I have from 2004, I believe, by James Scott Bell. Or no, I'm not sure who wrote it. Forget it, but it's an older book, and it's one that when I looked at the price on it, I'll link it in the description so you can check it out for yourself. I don't actually remember what it's called offhand. I have it deep in my bookshelf, so it's gonna be hard for me to dig it out. But it's a thin book, but it's an older book, and when I looked at the price, I just thought it was a little overpriced for its size and its position in history. So I thought, well, I'm probably not going to cover that, or if I do, I might do it in joint with the other one that I wanted to go over, which I'm probably going to be doing in season 3. But I know I needed one for this season, and the one that leapt out to me was the one we're going to do today, called Writing with Emotion, Tension, and Conflict by Cheryl St.John, who, if you watched last week's video, she did the foreword on the dialogue book. So she's a pretty important writer for craft. And one thing I want to mention, the reason why I think this is a really important book not to miss, even if you skip all the other books we've covered all season, this is one of the few that I think I would have to insist on you checking out. If you look at their Amazon reviews, there's some reviewers who this book kind of changed their way of approaching storytelling. And I don't want to put words in their mouth. You can go and read the reviews on Amazon and Barnes & Noble in particular, but this is the way this book is laid out. You're actually going to learn something valuable in it, and some writers, they really can't figure out how in the world they got forward without this. And I don't know that I'm going to go to that extreme because I've been studying this for a long time, but I understand what they're coming from, and I really do think it's worth mentioning this book and going through it and making it clear what it offers and what it doesn't offer. So if you recall last season, if you watched last season, we covered a lot of structure, we covered a lot of scene development, not a lot of craft, not a lot of interior craft, but a lot of more global craft. I would say this book is more on the global craft side of things because it is more about developing the story proper. So here's the problem. When I wanted to do a book on conflict, I wanted to do a book on just conflict. And there is a book out there that I believe is just conflict that I am going to most likely cover in season 3. I was going to do it this season, but again, there's a point where it becomes too much to read, and quite frankly, the budgetary concerns. I just think I'm gonna probably have to hold off. As much as I don't want to, I think I need to just to kind of stagger things out. But I didn't want to ignore the concept of conflict. However, the thing with this book is it's not just about conflict. It's also about emotion and tension. And in a way, I think it's important that we have a book that does do tension and emotion, because conflict doesn't really work without them. Tension is what you bring into the conversation when you don't really have a solution yet, but you know that you need to come up with one. And there's like an embedded tension where let's say you know that you have a group of 12 people in a room and one of them is the killer, but you don't know which one. And so the tension is just embedded in the situation. The dude or the girl, whoever it is ready to strike again, and if they don't figure out who it is in the next 3 hours, someone's going to end up on the floor and they're not going to get up on their own. And to stop that, you have to figure it out. So the tension there obviously is, can you beat the clock? Can you figure out who's the guilty before they do it again? And so just in that sense alone, on a bigger scale, you have the tension, but then you also have other smaller tensions, like the husband comes home with the lipstick on his collar, and what is that it's the result of the fact that he passed out, and somebody had to revive him through mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, but their coordination is so lousy that they missed on the first go, and so they they eventually woke him up, but it took a couple tries because, again, they got the collar before they got, the mouth. Now, that doesn't necessarily bide well for him because he's also got lipstick on his mouth and his collar. Doesn't look good for him, but we know that it's there because someone saved his life. His wife, who doesn't yet know that he had a problem, you see where we're going here. You can play out the scene however you want. In fact, if you want to tell that story, post it in the comments, and we'll have a good laugh or a good cry or however you angle it. But just embedded in that situation, we have both emotion. Actually, we have all three: emotion, tension, and conflict. Emotionally, the dude doesn't want to offend his wife. He can't help it that he had a major problem with his air, with his breathing. Perhaps he choked on something, or maybe maybe he's in a situation where the air just went out of the room. Who knows? We know it's not his fault, but his wife doesn't know that, and she's not going to be happy, nor is she willing to listen. Maybe, depending on how you angle that, right? So one of the things that it's either this book or the one I think it's this book, talks about how tension is in a conflict and all that. Conflict is the answer to the problem you set up. So if, let's say, Bob goes in to see his boss to ask about a promotion, and this boss gives him a promotion, there's no conflict because problem solved. But if Bob goes in to ask for a promotion and the boss just looks at him like, what are you talking about? Why do you think we get promoted around here? Only I get promoted. I'm the boss. I'm not giving you my job. Now we have, there's a conflict, because the conflict, it may not be external as much, because if there's only one ladder to climb and the boss is the way between him and the next rung, boss isn't going to give that up easily. So the conflict then becomes Bob's internal journey. He cannot feel adequate unless he can get out of his job as the ditch digger, and he wants to instead become the overseer, the one who tells people which ditches to dig, right? And so until he can get that climb, he's not going to feel like he's where he belongs, and so that becomes his inner conflict. So these are the kinds of things that you can get out of this book, and it's really inventive. It's not inventive, it's storytelling, but it's really important. And so you do have, again, as usual, you've got all your parts in your chapter. So here's an example of part 3, setting is more than backdrop, defining setting and observation. This kind of is a callback to the setting series we just did. So this is actually also a bridge between the topics we've already covered and the ones that we're going into, just like dialogue was. So there's a lot in here that you can use in order to improve your story. And then each chapter, this is Cheryl, St. John's methodology, is to give you exercises at the end. A lot of them do that, but she does it here too. Gives you, so this example would be, create a list of givens you're using in your story. Is there universal appeal? While working on your story, write several paragraphs using word pictures and don't use any feeling words, that's in quotes. Instead, evoke emotions through what the character says or does. And that is based on the chapter called Internal Narrative and Deep Point of View. And if you're not sure what deep point of view is, that's when you eliminate things like he thought, he saw, things like that, and you just get right to the action. It's hard to do. I'm not good at it myself. I still get the he saws and he thoughts in there pretty liberally. It's something I'm trying to work on myself, but it's not an easy thing to tackle. But if you get good at it, this goes back to what I was saying in the last video about free writing. Again, I'm not a fan of free writing, never have been, but I see the merits of free writing if you use that as a place to practice your craft and a place to learn about your character. I do not think it's a good place to get warmed up, because just write the story. If your story is worth telling, you don't need to get warmed up. Just go write it. But if you have to figure out who your character is a little more intimately, like if your outline is not good enough, or even if your character sketch doesn't really explain everything that there is to know about your character, then writing that personal deep scene might help you do that. It might help develop your skill for that moment, so that you can take what you've learned from that experience and apply it to the novel. But that's one example. The other thing too is this book has a lot of examples from text and even from movies. So like it references books like Pay It Forward and well, pay it forward. Slumdog Millionaire. So what she does, she gives you a movie watching list at the bottom. I don't know if you can see that. It's got a little blurry on my screen, but if you're looking for sacrifice and evocative versus emotional writing, and you want to learn how to do that, then you need to watch Slumdog Millionaire, so you can get a picture of what she's going to talk about. And so she gives you a lot of writing assignments and movie watching assignments. It's kind of fun. And then you have, of course, your classic divisions of topics, so you have something bite-sized to focus on. Now, the one thing this does not have, I don't think, is the summary. No. It does have exercises, but it does not have a summary. So one of the trends of more recent years is to put a summary at the end of the book, so you don't have to take notes. This does not have that, so you are going to probably want to take some notes. And of course, you certainly want to get caught up on the movies. She actually gives you an entire list of movies that you should prepare with. Die Hard's on the list, so it's a good list. Die Hard's on it. So is Jerry Maguire. If you haven't seen Jerry Maguire, another great movie. But yeah, it's a really thorough book. It's not that long. It's what's average size? It's under 2. Oh, yeah. You know what? I told myself, I wrote a note to myself to remember to include this, and I almost forgot. This has, in my opinion, one of the best character development sheets in any book or any source. I'm writing, I don't know if you keep up with my channel, I have a Scrivener document called Story, actually I haven't looked at it, it's called Story Planning General. And it's like this extensive, neurotic list of things to give you, the writer, an opportunity to develop your characters, your scenes, your plots, everything. It's excessive. And I kind of mentioned in the front matter of the document, you're not going to use all of this. This is mainly a guide for you to decide which ones you want. But it covers. I'm not done with it. It's been a huge project, but it's like a little mini course of itself within Scrivener. But it's part of it gives you an opportunity to develop your characters, your scenes, everything down to the science. I think I have. Is there science in there? It's really thorough. Again, to the point of neuroticism. And you're not going to use all of that at all. Some of it, yes. All of it, you shouldn't, because you'll drive yourself nuts. I don't plan to use all of it, and I wrote the thing. But with this particular one here, in chapter 28, the techniques to make the reader character, it has a character development sheet. So she has what's called the GMC, which stands for, I forgot, it's goal, motivation, and conflict. And what's great about it is you have things like, okay, for each main character I write down, how the story will start in the moment of change, motivation, factors and incidents and backstory, the reasoning behind believable actions, long-term goal includes springs from the backstory and emotional needs and so on. And so that's the explanation of what the sheet is. And then what she gives you an actual sheet you can use to your advantage. And what's great about this sheet is it's not neurotic, yet it asks all the essential questions. Excuse me. And it even gives you an opportunity to have 10 descriptions for adjectives. So in one of her examples, she has a character named Benjamin Cheney, who's 24 years old. He's a veterinarian. His family includes Ellie's brother, son of a town prostitute, a dirt poor, abusive childhood, illegitimate child, and he doesn't know who his father is. His personality is he's old beyond his years. He's jaded, kind-hearted, abhors weakness, loves animals, has very high standards for himself in the world. And you'll notice that what she did here, she just kind of grouped it all up into a little paragraph. It's it's nothing fancy. It's just a place to take notes. Just 10 descriptors or adjectives that describe him. Kind-hearted, self-improved and skilled and competent, ashamed, educated at university, jaded, frustrated, tainted, perfectionist or improviser, respectful, and then he's stubborn because he won't sell the house. And this is in reference to, just so you all know, the story. It's from a book called The Preacher's Daughter, just so you know. His strongest trait is self-control, and it's all about control. His weakest trait is unworthiness and anger. It's all on the inside. His greatest fear is hurting or tainting a woman, losing control, and being like the men he saw as a boy. And his internal motivation and conflict is he sees passion and desire as a weakness, puts a lot of energy into producing perfection, and is single-handedly protecting women. And that's, I mean, it's that simple. Like, that's a lot to pack in a little space, but it really gives you a place to put it all together and make it good. And then she ends the book on a wrap-up chapter, so it's sort of like the summary of the whole book. I think it's a really well-crafted book. It's one of, I think, my favorites this season. Not to say anything short of the ones that are coming, because again, I'm still having to play catch-up on the books that are ahead of this one. So I can't say for sure that it's my favorite until the season's over, but of the ones that we covered so far, if it's not my favorite, it certainly is near the top, and I definitely recommend it. Again, I wanted a book that's strictly conflict, but I think this one's better because even though conflict only covers one part of the book, tension and emotion are just as important. And just while we're on the topic, what the book covers, the other elements, there are a total of 6 parts plus the wrap-up. So those parts are conflict makes the story, so that's conflict. Once more feelings, so those are your emotions. Setting is more than a backdrop. That would be your setting stuff. So that can be kind of a follow-up to the craft section that we just got out of. And then tension and pressure. So examples for chapters there are creating tension in a scene, sustaining tension, and then physical responses. Part 5, this is relevant to what we just did last week, dialogue. So it's revealing character through speech and expressing emotion by omission. And I mean, can't have enough dialogue help. And then of course the last is drawing emotions from characters. So character as a compass for emotions, kind of a throwback or callback to our Compass of Character book. What's in a Name, which is a callback to one of the articles from Creating Characters. That's the one where you describe what people are called in your book. I think I blew past it, but yeah, where do great characters come from? Reader must care, that's your empathy, make sure the reader wants to read it, and then the final is techniques to make the reader care, which is what we just looked at in the character cards. I think if you're going to get one book this season, this is the one. Obviously, I think you should get more than just one book. There's a number of books in here that are really useful, but I think this is a can't-miss book. So check it out. It's again by Cheryl St.John. I think she's got one other book out there that I've not checked out. I have to go back and refresh my memory. But this is like her big one for writing, and the one that you're gonna, again, this is your can't miss. But I think there's another book. So look her up. Look up her other writing books, and if you're like her kind of her fiction, I'm not a romance reader, but she gives a lot of examples from her own, and it's interesting. It's definitely interesting, even if it's not my genre. It says a lot about an author when I'm tempted to read a book that's not in my favorite genre, just because of the way she develops it, even in the example. She's a good teacher, and definitely one, again, do not miss this one. So that's, again, Writing with Emotion, Tension, and Conflict by Cheryl St.John. If you have any comments or questions, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. If you have a favorite book that you want to recommend that's on the topic of emotion, tension, or conflict, feel free to add that into the chat also. And as always, if you have a sample you want to share with the rest of the community, feel free to link it in the comments below. I think that's okay. It's okay with me. If it's okay with YouTube, then I'm okay with it. And then don't forget to like, subscribe, do all the things YouTubers tell you to do. Check out my website anytime you get a chance to check out the books I've written. Once again, provided it's open. I hope it's open by now. If it's not, it will be soon, and that's my official statement until the day it's open. And just come back and once it's open, have fun with it. I'm trying to design it to be a place for not only readers to enjoy my books, because I want them to enjoy my books, but I have a couple our pages in there that are hopefully useful to writers and readers. And so yeah, I hope that if my vision of the site is actually fulfilled, It should be a pretty interesting place. So if you haven't checked it out, come check it out. And you can support me again by picking up a book that you like. If you see something that I wrote that's if any interest to you, please by all means check it out. It would help a lot, and I'd appreciate it. And I'd like to hear what you think of it. I like feedback on my books, even negative feedback, as long as you can tell me why. Tell me why you don't like something, or tell me why you do like something, and that's useful to me. Words like "it sucks" doesn't help me. Words like "it's awesome" doesn't help me. I thank you if you like it enough to say it's awesome. But it's certainly every writer wants to hear the reasons why you think it's awesome, if you can. So anyway, that's all for today. Come back next week. We're gonna do. I think it's the book that. Just come back next week. Until next time. Bye.